We acknowledge the traditional owners of country throughout Australia and recognise their continuing connection to land, waters and culture. We pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging. This is Cheryl from Dja country. Hello everyone and welcome to Beyond the Pod, or Beyond 90, the podcast, episode 104. Thank you very much for joining us and listening in. Hopefully we've got a great show in line for you. My name is Cheryl Downs. My pronouns are she, her. Got a couple of fantastic people on the podcast with me. We've got Madge on there from up in Queensland, and we've got Molly in here from down in Tassie, and pretty shortly I think we'll be getting Dale on the podcast as well. Shout out to Eric before we go too far as well. He's a little bit under the weather and he's probably taking some extra time to make sure he's watching as much football as possible. But aren't we all? Madge, how much football are you watching and how much are you retaining? Because that's something we talked about off air, that It's not all sticking in my brain, but I know I'm happy.
I know. I'm watching a lot of football. I even I tweeted on the weekend when I went out to watch my one NPL game of the weekend. It was like, I'm just breaking up the Euros with some local football as well. Hopefully I can remember a bit to have a chat about it later today.
Good. We're hoping so too. And Molly, how about you? I remember us talking quite a long time ago, and it was a dream of yours to get to the Euros. So you'll have to wait until the next Euros by this point, unless you're heading over there for finals, which, hey, you know, who wouldn't sponsor Molly to head over to the finals?
I mean, that's the dream. But yeah, no, definitely. I'll probably always go next one until I finally get there. But the Euros is definitely a tournament I want to go see. And I mean, you're seeing all the fan stuff on Twitter and it's just fantastic as always. And I can't wait for it to come to Australia next year.
We'll give Dale a little bit of time for his audio to connect, which gives me an opportunity to talk about my Portuguese tarts that I made, vegan ones, by the way, just trying to get into the theme of the, Euros and what can we cook that aligns with it. Madge, I think you did the churros.
I did Portuguese custard tarts for the Matildas game as well. So, yeah. Not vegan, but
yours were quite possibly better than mine, with some silken tofu and mixed up raw cashews and maple syrup. But anyway.
I don't know, as long as there's pastry and some sort of sweet goodness in there, I think you're going okay.
Yep, very good. Dale, your thoughts as well. Welcome to the podcast. Thanks for joining. Hopefully you've had a good week and hopefully your alarm clock is serving its purpose.
I'll say maybe not my alarm clock, but I tell you, Optus Sports YouTube channel is getting an absolute workout at my place. Been really, really super impressed with the offering that they've been putting up, especially on kind of like free to use, not free to wear, but free to use channels like the YouTube stuff. They're playing a full 9-minute program of highlights for each game, which has been really good. And also just been super impressed with the actual broadcasts themselves so far. Commentary's been really good, noticeable improvement kind of from the last Euros. And I think that kind of comes along with the leaps and bounds that we're seeing with the broadcast of women's football and women's sport in general, which has been great.
It has been really good. And it improved for me. I have to tell this quick little story, which people can laugh at me, but I've found that the quality has improved since I wore some glasses which have the right focal length for the TV. Because I'm like, crikey, you'd think that they could put on some decent quality coverage for this.
Very true.
And I just picked up some glasses. I've got glasses for regular reading, but these ones were more driving glasses and whatnot. So I can see that sort of 4 or 5 meter distance. And I'm embarrassed to say that it's better. And anyway, there's a hot tip for anyone. Yeah, thanks, Molly. I appreciate it.
Memory's going and eyesight. There we go.
Yeah.
Tick. Thank you very much. Hopefully it doesn't go too fast. We're up to 373. It is going completely. 373 days until the Women's World Cup hits. Not Australian shores. I think the very first match is off in Auckland. So 373 days until the first game. So we're going to count that down and keep an eye on it. And hopefully some, if not all of our posts coming up in the near term will include that in there. So we are just, 8 days away or something thereabouts from the 1 year mark, which is absolutely rocking. There is, and I'll give a quick shout out. I know that Women on Side have got a webinar scheduled for 1 year to go. So if you haven't already seen that, have a look on their socials and find it. If not, we'll try and put a link into the show notes as well. There are some great guest guests in there, and it'll be great just to listen to people talk about football and really start getting excited for the World Cup, which is going to be here. Onto our history segment, where we usually talk about the Matildas Cap, who aligns with the episode. I don't have a lot of details, and I apologise for that, but Natalie Thomas, Matildas Cap number 104. She made her debut in 1998, which doesn't seem that long ago, but given my eyesight and memory, it's definitely feeling longer away. And she played for the national team until 2002. She made 13 A international appearances and managed to score 3 times as a forward. She later converted, and this is a nice, interesting bit, and a bit maybe where we throw to Madge as well, but I don't know how much you follow AFL or Aussie rules, but she later converted to AFL, drafted by the Western Bulldogs, and she played their first game at the MCG, which was played against Melbourne. Now, this is before AFLW. I believe it was during their sort of demo matches, which Bree Davey, another Matilda, would have been playing in as well. So there you go. You've got a Queensland captain in there, or Queensland AFL captain match. I don't know how much you get out there and watch Aussie rules as well.
Yeah, a little bit. I do follow the Lions, of course, and I remember in that game, a famous Queenslander, Taylor Harris, kicked one of her very memorable goals as she usually kicks. So, but yeah, it's interesting, and I guess it's one of the strengths as well as the barriers is probably the wrong word, but I mean, Australia has such a great women's sporting culture, and we've got a lot of competition, a lot of options for our female sports people, and having the competition of our different sports codes provides a lot of opportunities, and it's nice to see all ships rising with the various codes investing into women's sport now. So it's great.
Very good. All right, we'll throw off to news as well, and I might give you that one as well, Madge, because you're the first person on the list there.
Yeah, it's exciting news for it's a little bit sad for Brisbane Roar, and that it looks like we're going to be losing Anna Margraf, who's signed for newly promoted to the German top tier Bundesliga side, SV Meppen. So she's signed for them, which is great news. I think Beattie Goad previously played for SV Meppen, so great move for Anna, and I think it's something that could really see her kick on. She's a really talented and versatile wing player, so can play fullback, can also play forward as well. And of course, she has that German heritage as well. So hopefully, she should feel quite at home playing in Germany. So really excited to see how she goes in the Bundesliga.
Madge, question, do you know if she's signed as an international, or does she have heritage that enables her to sign? I don't know what the league is like over there in the Bundesliga.
Yeah, I don't actually know that detail, but that would be interesting to see whether or not, people who have that dual heritage, and I'm sure there's we'll get onto it later on with Indy Page Riley as well, that's can be opportunities for people to move around the world game.
Speaking of India Page Riley, I don't have that in the show notes, or I don't think I do, unless Eric updated them for us. But the news for her is that she's signed, or she's not signed, but she's going to play for New Zealand, as opposed to she played in the junior ranks for Australia. So good luck to her. And I think I've seen some posts around, or maybe it was just one post saying, we're losing these top players. But to be honest, it's great for them to have the opportunity to play anywhere in it. If their heritage ticks the box, then you beauty, so be it. And
they've got to take the opportunities that are best for their career and best for their ambitions as well. And for Indy Page Riley, she's probably looking at people like Sam Kerr aren't going away anytime soon. So where's her best opportunity to break into international football with the Ferns, and might be the better option for her. So all the best to her. I think great young player, and she's been going great in is it Denmark? She's playing
Denmark.
Yeah. So it would be great to see her kick on, and hopefully she can actually make the World Cup. That's a great goal for her to aim for.
To answer your question, Anna Margraf, she was born in Germany, was my understanding. So she will be a local player because she will have an EU passport, even if she doesn't have a physical EU passport. If she's born over there, then she'll be classified as a local player. But the point that you make around Riley and around Ali Green as well, these players who have dual nationality, I don't think that any Australian sports fan, let alone women's football fan, can kind of begrudge our players going and playing for New Zealand. They have, just about a guaranteed World Cup spot every World Cup. Obviously, they have a much smaller playing pool, and you have to, as you say, they have to do what's best for their career. And if they can reach the pinnacle of world football by making a World Cup appearance, then I can't begrudge them for that. I think it's more than fair. As you see, some American players playing for, mostly American players, American-born players playing for the Philippines, and players looking at going overseas and playing for the teams of their heritage or parents' heritage. Yeah, I don't see any problem with it. Good luck to her, I say. It's a shame, but we develop these players. But look, if they can, I think we've taken enough from New Zealand. Split ends, Crowded House, Russell Crowe, Pavlovas, lots of stuff. They can have some football players. That's more than okay with me.
What I really like is that it's not just the top tier Matildas who are getting out and about and playing in leagues around the world. And I think this is a really great way for them to accelerate their learning. We saw Mary Fowler, she's been in the news, and Sam Lewis did a top article on her. I think it was just last week, just talking about her experience, and she's going over to play for Man City, and she admits that she's going over to a team where everyone's going to be better than her. And what greater way to learn than immersing yourself in an environment where you're one of the best. You might not learn as much, you might encourage other people to learn, but I think that's absolutely wonderful. So all kudos to the players out there who get to move around a little bit. On to some Matildas news. So I think the biggest news that we've got at the moment is the AFF Championships. And I feel like Molly might be well placed to at least kick off some of the conversation. I know Eric would love to be here and talk to this, but certainly one of the challenges that we've seen is that we're back to old-fashioned watching on Twitter, unless you've somehow cracked a live stream. But Molly, your thoughts on the matches that Australia has played, who's doing well, and in our lead up to the finals, we hope.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously it was a tough start to our campaign over there with a couple losses, or a loss and a draw, I think it was, to start it all off, which of course is never what you're after, but it's such a fantastic opportunity. You see the lineups on Twitter, and most of them are under 20 even. And there's
and
a lot
haven't
of
played with each other generally.
That's it.
Maybe that's a big statement, but yeah.
I think you've got players sort of from bits and pieces from across the country, which is great. And, from the A-League and from the state leagues and development pathways and that. And I think that's a really positive thing. And then you've got, a bit of experience there with someone like Charlotte Grant now and Larissa Crummer, which has been really good. And obviously not being able to watch them, I can't say too much, but it looks like we've scored some bangers. I think the latest game we scored a heap of set pieces, which I think is a really positive thing. I think if you're able to sort out your set pieces, particularly with a team that hasn't played that much football together, I think that's a real positive to be able to score from a set piece. And I mean, it's a great opportunity for those young players. So.
Well, I've been excited to see the results coming through, but I think I'd be even more excited to actually see the games, even though we've got the Euros on at the moment. I don't know whether or not there are any Matildas watch parties, but this is the kind of thing that, people would just lap up to be able to see younger Matildas or fringe Matildas really being able to throw themselves into that kind of environment. So I know that Football Australia was working to do what they could, but it wasn't in their hands. So as women's football gets more and more, people have a big appetite to watch these kind of things. So hopefully they can see the benefit of it and see what we can do. I think, Molly, just the final thing probably about how can Australia make the finals. Eric's laid it out there for us, which I think was very kind of him. I don't know if you want to take this, Dale, Madge, anyone?
I'll take it. Yeah. The good news for the Matildas is Thailand and the Philippines play each other in the last group game. That's tomorrow night at 9:00, as will be the Australian game, which is against Malaysia. So essentially, we have to hope that the Philippines beat Thailand and Australia win their game by a decent amount. Currently, it's down to goal difference. Plus, if Thailand if Philippines defeat Thailand and Australia wins their game, then it'll go to goal difference. We're 5 behind at the moment, but obviously Philippines are looking pretty smart at the moment. They actually they've only conceded the 1 goal for the tournament, so can see that going down to the wire. But yeah, essentially need to beat Malaysia and equalise the goal difference. And then my understanding is we'll play at this stage, I believe we'll play Myanmar, but there are a bunch of games still to go on in the second group. And then that semi-final will be played Friday at 10 p.m. Australian time. So plenty to look forward to, even if we can't really look at it, unfortunately.
Yeah, crank up your Twitter.
Yeah.
Sometimes people wonder.
I do want to give a shout out to the person, the one person who has been filming Australian games. That love to see very big early days of the dub energy. We love to see this.
Yeah. Yes, we're very thankful. I can't remember the Twitter user at the moment, but yes, very thankful. But I think this is where we need to just keep complaining on the internet, and hopefully the next tournament we can get better coverage. I guess the thing about the tournament, I think we mentioned it last week. It was a pity that, given that our team hadn't played much together, it was a bit of a shame that we had those the toughest games at the beginning. Yep. It would have been nice to be able to grow into the tournament a little bit and just get a few matches under our belt. So that's been a bit on the downside for tournament football wise. But and I think there's also been a bit of illness in the group as well, which is which is not great. But so hopefully we can end it on a positive note, and all things going well, make it through to the next stage.
Given that we talked a little bit about maybe my age and the ability to forget things is becoming a great skill for me. I don't know if I can, say that that's a great skill, but that's what it is. And what I wanted to talk about earlier is that with Anna Margraf and being able to sign with a German team as a local player, I wondered from our crew here whether or not you've got any extended heritage that would have enabled you to go off and play for Iceland, Norway, China, Canada, Chile, anyone? No. Drawing a blank.
It depend on the rules. I'm pretty umpteenth generation Australia.
I would be able to play for Australia, but not as us. Play for Ireland. My dad's an Irish citizen through foreign birth. My grandfather and great grandfather were both Irish citizens. I am not eligible for Irish citizenship because of the way that the foreign birth rules work, but because my dad is a citizen, I would be able to play for either the Republic or Northern Ireland. But yeah, it's a funky one. But obviously I haven't played any youth caps, so don't have to worry about the nationality change, which is...
So you're still holding out. You can work out what you want to do.
Look,
We're holding out
I've got
for
a
you
fair bit
as well,
I'm still in my prime, I like to think. Maybe a few kilos over playing weight, but look, I'm doing my best.
Yep. Oh, good. And we'll come back to that when we go around the world and talk about the Euros. And I'd love to talk about the fans a little bit and sort of try and rate who are the best fans. You don't get points for this kind of thing, but if there was a fan vote, that'd be pretty enticing. Some other news that are in and around the Matildas. Lydia Williams, has she moved to PSG? It has been somewhat reported, but I've not seen it official somewhere. Don't want to spread too many rumours because last time I did that, I was completely wrong anyway. But I think that'd be a good move for her. I think, she's been in and around Arsenal for a while. It's maybe, and she hasn't had huge amounts of game time, but that's not necessarily the biggest thing. But yeah, exposure to a big league, PSG being really quite strong. I don't know.
Oh, I think it'd be a good move. We've seen she's obviously not first choice at Arsenal, which is a bit of a shame. She moved there and she was in pretty red hot form with Melbourne City, moved to Arsenal, hasn't really got much of a look in, which is a bit of a shame, especially after they signed Manuela Zinsberger, who was quite impressive for Austria the other day, I must say. But the current PSG number one injured her ACL in May, Barbara Vodikova. So she'd go there and she'd most likely be number one, which is really good. PSG have to qualify for the group stage of the Champions League through round two, so they will only have to play 2 games to make the Champions League. But I mean, if that's the case, and you'd expect that they'd make it, I mean, it would be a turn up for the books if they didn't. But that'd be huge. That's another kind of 6 games against top quality opposition that should be getting ahead of the World Cup, as well as obviously starting most, if not all, French league games, which I think would be a huge positive.
Very nice. All right, on to dub news and signings. After all the news that we had last week, which I think is when the fixtures were all, well, not the fixtures, but when the league starting dates were announced and big news about home and away and all that sorts of thing. We're back now to player signings. Thank you, Stefan. I know that you're not on our podcast tonight as well, and we do miss you, but we're happy for you to have a night off and you can just maybe listen in. But the news from Canberra United this week is that Hayley Taylor-Young has signed for 2 seasons with Canberra United. She really did start with them as a very, a youngster. She's got amazing pace, and I think she's been developing her game a lot around the pace. So she's a great signing for them, and they're really getting ahead of many teams with getting some signings, which has been one of their challenges in the past. They're retaining some of their core, and hopefully soon we'll be able to see some big signings as well. So we've definitely updated our squad page on that as well, as much as we can see at the moment for who's doing what. Let's go around the world and into the Euros at the moment. If anyone looks tired, they're probably a football fan, and I'm still getting blank stares at work when I try and talk about this and that, but that's okay. I keep trying. Any surprises? Or go maybe around the group first, because we don't want to just talk about the results. Any particular surprises from the results from yourselves? Maybe Madge, do you want to kick off with a surprise? Or
I don't think there's really been any huge surprises in the first round. I think it's fairly much gone to what you would have expected in those first games. Maybe the only one that's a slight surprise, but really not, was the draw between Netherlands and Sweden. I think a lot of people have Sweden as, fairly strong favourites along with Spain for the tournament. But I do want to give a shout out. I think it was Sophie Lawson on Twitter putting out the nice the Malm. I'm pretty sure I have that chest of draws to represent Group C. That was just a
very good
two lots of draws with all the teams, with Switzerland and Portugal as well drawing. That was probably the surprise, that the Switzerland-Portugal game, Switzerland getting off with 2 quick goals, but then Portugal clawing them back for a 2-2 draw, which was maybe one of the more interesting games in the first round.
Yep. Molly, for you, was there? I mean, for me, one of the surprises, maybe just to throw in a thought in there, was that we've seen some elements of competitiveness from teams that we didn't necessarily think would be there. And Northern Ireland, to see them score a goal, and were they the ones that scored it in the first minute or second minute?
No, that was Finland against Spain.
Okay, I tell lies. It's not unusual for me to be telling lies or just relying on a false memory. But yeah, it's been that there's been this ability to make a quick turnaround, and has there only been 2 clean sheets so far, maybe? So yeah, there's plenty of goals coming out.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the surprise is just France absolutely annihilating Italy's defence so quickly.
Yeah.
I mean, it took them a half to score 5 goals, and I think if they'd kept the pedal on, like, they missed 2 clear-cut goals in that first half as well. So they could have easily been 8-0 up at half-time, and they wouldn't have been unfair. I think Italy, if they'd scored in the 3rd minute with their chance, it would have been a totally different game. But you always think of Italy as really sound defensively, and that's, what they sort of pride their game on, is being really well structured off the ball, and they just weren't that. They were getting absolutely killed by crosses in behind the defence on the byline, and the keeper didn't know what to do with it. Defenders were pinging it out, and it just landed at French feet, and they took up the opportunity. It was beautiful to watch as a neutral. Wouldn't want to have been an Italian watching that though.
Another surprise, and Dale, your thoughts on this one as well. But Germany, were they really dark horses, or was it that we were just all sort of throwing our weight against Spain and just thinking we couldn't wait to see them play? But that's the great thing about the Euros, is that every match has the potential to be an absolutely brilliant match. But 4-0 for Germany against Denmark says a lot to me.
I mean, it's kind of hard to call a team that has 2 World Cups and 8 continental champions dark horses. But yeah, they were super impressive against Denmark. I think also that this is the tournament. Like, obviously, there's a little bit of disparity in the teams that were kind of heavily beaten. Italy, obviously, being the one kind of the exception that proves the rule. But I think that as Madge was saying, a lot of those results kind of went the way that we expected. But I don't think that we expected Denmark and Italy to be so poor. Like Italy absolutely honked it up this morning. I must say, in terms of the Malm, first of all, I think that every person under the age of like maybe 40 that has moved out of home in the last 20 years has owned that set of draws at some stage. But that Portugal-Switzerland game, smoky for one of the best men's or women's Euros game ever. Like that was an absolute banger of a game. Switzerland obviously scored too early, and then Portugal chipped away, but I couldn't get the winner. I was super impressed with that. And was also super impressed with Norway in their 4-1 win over Northern Ireland. Really sad to see former Evertonian Simone McGill, who's now at Aston Villa, out for an extended period of time with an ACL injury, which is really sad to see. But yeah, I think Norway really showed off their credentials in that one, and the England-Norway game is going to be an absolute cracker. Really looking forward to that. And no Arda Hegerberg goal, so like, keeping the powder dry.
Yeah. I think there's plenty more for fans to come to watch more and more games. I think for me, when I sat there and watched Netherlands v Sweden, it was a 1-1 draw. And I mean, that's the kind of match that you could see in the finals. And that's how much you get out of the Euros. You don't have to wait to the finals to get some amazing top matches. You've got really competitive teams throughout. There's so much quality in there. There's quality in the fans as well. And I wanted to give a shout out to probably the Orange Army and the Northern Ireland, I suppose, as well, getting out there. They're nice and loud. And I think it was Norway versus Northern Ireland, where they were still cheering away and they were happy as Larry, and you could watch Norway and think that they were losing. Like in terms of looking at the spectators, they just didn't look like they were up for it. So I think that's lovely to see that culture around the game, that people are happy to watch it. And yeah, really exciting. There has been some pain, of course, with some injuries along the way, but hopefully some, who was it? Van
Van Veenendaal, the Dutch keeper, going off with a concussion.
Yeah. So, I mean, with a concussion, that's quite tricky to turn around in a couple of days to come back for another match. But yeah, these tournaments are so compressed that you don't really have that opportunity to come back.
That's a good point. That means, as you say, generally speaking, at least in my understanding, the minimum amount of time you can come back from a concussion is 6 days. And I know that that's fairly common around the rugby codes and AFL. If you have a concussion on a Sunday, there's no way you'll play on the Friday. So you would assume that the backup keeper will be called in again. And I must say, again, I was really impressed with her performance against Sweden. She was quite good.
There are a couple of players out there who are wearing the concussion headbands as well, which I counted 3. I don't know if there were more than 3 that people noted.
I noticed, I think it was Hedvig Lindahl was wearing one. That's about all that I could think of, but I know that there are a lot of players that are starting to wear them. It's always funny to me when people say, they should all just wear headgear because it stops concussions. Firstly, if headgear stopped concussions, the NFL wouldn't have a concussion problem.
That's true.
But secondly, most rugby players wear them so they don't get cuts on their head, as opposed to, or cauliflower ears, as opposed to concussions. But it's good to see at least some players kind of taking some form of preventative action.
Yeah.
I mean, especially goalkeepers, like flying in at feet, getting kicked is no fun. Can confirm.
Yeah. If they're reducing some risk, maybe not eliminating the risk, but reducing it, particularly it's just about their life as well, right? This is a game. We don't want their lives to be impacted. Who's best place? And Dale, I'm kind of looking at you, but I'm also happy for anyone to go through. What are the matches that are coming up? What are we going to potentially see? What's going to be one of the most exciting games across the next couple of days?
Setting my alarm for tomorrow morning.
Yeah, I was going to say tomorrow, England versus Norway is going to be an absolute banger. That's at 5:00 for those of you who want to torture yourself by getting up that early. Next few days, we've got, let me see, Austria versus Northern Ireland is the early game. Then we've got Denmark and Finland. Germany and Spain on Wednesday is going to be a great one.
Yep.
Netherlands v Portugal will be interesting. And then I think Italy versus Iceland is going to be super interesting. Iceland, not necessarily a smoky in this tournament, but a super interesting team to watch. And Italy, I mean, they can't play worse than they did this morning. So look, it's all uphill. It's all up from there. But yeah, we'll be really interested to see that one as well.
Italy will be very thankful for VAR as well.
Oh yeah,
I can't remember who it was, but their
Kanga,
defender
the
got a
captain.
straight red.
yeah.
That was
yes.
overturned on review by VAR.
Was surprised that was overturned as well.
So was I.
Generally, kicking someone above the waist is a red card.
I think maybe the only thing I can think that possibly saved her is that it looked like she tried to pull out of it.
And also that I don't think the player was on goal either, so it's not like you.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point.
Position off it is probably initially when I saw it, I didn't quite see how high her foot was, and I'm like, how is that a straight red? That's ridiculous. She wasn't through on goal, whatever. And then you see the replay, like, oh, that's why it's a straight red.
I saw the ref go to a back pocket, and I was like, you know what, I can't really argue with that. And then saw the replay, and I was like, no, they're losing by 5 goals. Maybe we should give them a break.
Yeah. So I've got a question for everyone. Like, when it comes to tournament football, you always have these cliches. It's like, is the team that starts red hot, like your France, going to be able to take that through the tournament? Whereas your Sweden, I saw a bit of conversation that maybe they looked a little bit underwhelming, but are they going to be a type of team that will grow into a tournament? What do you think?
Sweden have the experience to come to a tournament, whilst I think France, they started the World Cup at home in scintillating form. Like, everyone was up on their feet. And then they get knocked out in the first stage, albeit against the USA, but they were amazing in the group stage at home in front of a home crowd, but got unlucky in the draw. So I think a lot of it isn't even if you go into the tournament, it's luck of the draw as well. With, does a England or does a Netherlands come in second and you're up against them in the next stage, and they're a bit more daunting than say in Italy, say Portugal or someone like that.
It's a good point, and you make that well, Molly, especially around France. Like, I mean, as you say, they started with the same margin. They beat Korea Republic 4-0 in that game in Paris. Struggled to beat Brazil in the second round, and then
is that off the top of your head, Dale?
Yeah. And then we're pretty well beaten by the US, just because they didn't realise that Megan Rapinoe was on the pitch for 90 minutes. Just decided not to mark her, which was bold. But I think there's in terms of Sweden as a good example, and I'd go so far as to say the Netherlands as well. Miedema really had one opportunity in the game, and she turned it into an assist. And that's the kind of thing where the Netherlands will look at that and go, and Mark Parsons, very canny operator, will look at that and go, oh, okay, so if we get Viv a little bit more involved, they've got some really good players in terms of, Van der Donk and Lika Martin still linked up with. If we can get her more involved in the game, then we should be able to do a bit better in the second and third matches in the group. So I think it's a very, very good point. I will also point you to Jonathan Liu's tweet this morning that says, imagine how good France would be if they actually liked each other, which I think is just perfect. It's so weird seeing France play without Amandine Henry and still be so good. But yeah, really looking forward to seeing some more of them against Belgium.
My answer, Madge, I don't really know. I mean, I think it can be either or. I think slow and steady could win the race, but, it's about chances, and some of those chances are so fine. They're such small chances, but if you can convert them, I mean, I look at all the teams or all the nations that are playing, and I'd be happy for so many of them to win. It's just exciting to see them all out there. I did want to, if people are happy to humour me, and I know that Eric might roll his eyes, but Eric, I'm very sorry for asking this question. But if Australia was in the Euros, aka like Eurovision, what do you think we would learn from that? How would we fare? How would we be able to play against these styles of football? And I think it's a relevant question, not in the context of the Euros, but it's a relevant question in terms of where we're at right now and where we might need to be for 2023. Go, Molly.
We'll learn so much.
Yeah.
So much. I mean, the last 18 months, 2 years has taught us much is that we do struggle against European teams, even your Portugals, even whatever. Like
I think we've known that for 20 years, just saying.
Yeah, both men's and women's.
So I think it's I mean, the idea of it would be really fun. But I'm also really glad that we're not, because I think there would be a lot of heartbreak and
Smack our ranking.
Let's keep with Asia and South America at the moment. Maybe we do it mostly fair, a little bit better.
But to beat them eventually, hopefully, fingers crossed, we need to play them. So not that, I mean, it's not a real opportunity. I'm not proposing that, hey, invite us to the Euros or something, but it's more,
I don't know if we have that much sway shares, unfortunately.
Well, you and I maybe not, Dale, but
Yeah.
Molly and Madge for sure.
Well,
I think they're on
these
it.
two on sending some letters. That's the
I think we need to get some European broadcasting organisation on board and pay a lot of money.
Yeah.
But I know for me, I guess the thing that comes straight to mind is the speed of the game. I feel like that's the big difference. And Molly, even you're talking about the South American game. Yeah, it's not quite the same. You look at some of these high level games in the Euros, and you saw it with us playing against even Portugal, not dealing with the press. We can't deal with our space being invaded on the ball. So that's something that I think, like you say, we just need to keep playing against these teams and get used to it and get better at it.
Yeah, it's time to make decisions and time to execute on the skills as well. And it's probably both of those things that we need some space in and around.
And I think, like, the further to your point, Madge, like, Australian football kind of probably over the last 10 years in terms of this has, I mean, I hate to use the term, but become a little bit half pregnant in this sense. Like, we're kind of unable to press, but also unable to deal with being pressed. So, like, if you think about in European football, generally speaking, if you look at most of the matches for the next round, one team is going to sit deep and one team is going to press forward. Mm-hmm. And the team that sits deep is going to be pretty obvious. So, like, except for, you look at, say, Netherlands, Portugal, Germany, Spain, those two teams will probably go hammer and tong at each other. But if you look at Austria v Northern Ireland, you would say probably Northern Ireland are going to sit deep. Denmark against Finland, you'd say Finland are going to sit deep. We have never been very good at either pressing high or sitting deep. We kind of rely on a very active midfield. So I think we would have to figure out a way somehow to play one or the other. We have a very strong forward line, but we don't want that forward line then kind of running out of legs by having to press from the front. We score a lot from midfield, but we also don't want to have to rely on our defenders defending constantly. So, yeah, I think it would teach us so much in terms of, like, finding a way to win a game where we don't necessarily think one exists. But, yeah, it would be fascinating.
I think the good thing is that Tony G should be getting quite a lot of data from this, and not just Tony, but the whole coaching group should be able to technically be reviewing this and seeing where we might stack up and practicing some of those kind of things as well. So even though we're not directly involved, hopefully we still get quite a lot of value from that.
Yeah.
They
would be like, and because this month there's so many tournaments going on, which we'll probably come on to later, their hard drives will be working overtime because all of these teams will be potential World Cup opponents. So I know Copa America and African Cup of Nations are both direct qualifiers. So, like, we'll be looking at those, you'd assume, obviously I'm not in the know, but you'd assume that we'd be looking at those games, looking at potential opponents and thinking, what can we learn from these games?
And as an aside, it's probably a good reason why Tony might be focused on watching the Euros as opposed to coaching the AFF Championship, giving
also
the coaching staff some more experience there, taking the lead. And
much nicer weather, not getting rained on constantly. I'm sure those have something to do with it as well.
Yeah, good points. Dale, we may as well go around the world a little bit if you're happy to run through what you know and anyone to add bits and pieces as they know them as well. I have to say that I've been very Eurocentric in my watching at the moment. So put your hand up if you've got more to say.
Yeah, for sure. We'll start in North America. We're 2 games into the CONCACAF W Championship. United States and Canada leading the groups. No real surprise there. More interesting is that Haiti and Costa Rica are the second place teams. So those 2 teams will go through to the semi-finals if results stay the way they are at the moment. As I said, there's 2 groups of 4, so 8 teams in that one. I think the surprise for me, as well as I said, Haiti, is that Mexico are actually bottom of their group. So that's a bit of a weird one. There are games coming up, I believe, tomorrow. Canada v Costa Rica, Panama versus Trinidad and Tobago, Jamaica versus Haiti, and the US versus Mexico. find them on your local, I don't know, TV. I don't know what the hell is with that.
Yeah,
and I think we've already had confirmed that USA, Canada, and Costa Rica have qualified for the World Cup next year. So still waiting on the others. But I agree that Haiti taking the box seat and Mexico looking in peril.
Haiti
and Jamaica.
Yeah, Jamaica are third in their group at the moment behind. They're between Haiti and Mexico. So I think it's 5 teams go to the World Cup, and then I think it might be the 6th. So I think it's the 4 semi-final, or the equivalent of the 4 semi-finalists. The winner of the 5th v6, and then the 6th place goes through to the qualifiers for the World Cup. But don't quote me on that.
I'd be super keen to see Bunny Shaw, so I'm
too.
cheering for Jamaica to get there.
Mad keen to see Haiti at a world tournament. It's been, I think Haiti's qualified for 1 men's World Cup, maybe in the mid-70s, but super interesting country historically, so I'd really love to see that. Speaking of super interesting countries, Women's African Cup of Nations are up to the quarterfinal stage. Games are on Thursday this week, Thursday and Friday. Quarterfinals at this stage are Zambia v Senegal, Morocco versus Botswana, Cameroon v Nigeria, which is going to be super interesting because those 2 teams have been represented at each of, I think it's every Women's World Cup they've been represented at. And then South Africa versus Tunisia. And then obviously we go through to the semi-finals and the final for that one.
And big news out in that space as well. And I'm not sure how much everyone knows and who's got the best update, but Barbara Banda, I think whatever tests that they conclude is that her testosterone level is outside the realm of what they deem to be acceptable. I don't want to tell them to go away ever so kindly.
It'll be interesting to see. I did read that. I think it was either Eric or a friend of the show, Nick Amies, who mentioned that off mic. But I will be interested to see how that is dealt with from a FIFA perspective. We know obviously kind of testosterone counts and trans women in sports and things is a very hot topic at the moment, but it would be a real shame if Zambia were to make the World Cup and Barbara Banda wasn't to be there because she's such a good player and so important for Zambia.
Yep. Sorry, Dale, keep going.
No, thank you. Finally, I'll click out of the Euros because we're done with those ones. Last major one, we haven't got to the OFC Oceanian Women's Cup of Nations just yet. That kicks off this time Wednesday, I believe.
Wednesday, yep.
But we've only had 1 game in the Copa America Femenina so far. Brazil smashed Argentina 4-0 and are obviously top of their group. Would love Brazil to win this tournament because they now have a thing called the Finalissima, where they're European and South American champions play off, which is really great stuff. They're top of Group B. Top of Group A at the moment are Ecuador and Colombia. Chile yet to play in that group, and Peru yet to play in the other group. So more information with that one as it comes to hand. But that one's got a fair way to run. Semi-finals aren't until the 26th, so a little bit of time before we have any outcome for that.
How much fun is July? It's brilliant. There's so much
football. I know, right?
And even if you can't necessarily watch the games live, there's plenty that you can watch after the fact. So if you're smart, you'll take some time off work like Molly.
Eric has informed me that Haiti qualified for the Men's World Cup in 1974, as did Australia. So there you go. Thank you, Eric.
Isn't that nice that Eric's listening to us? Thank you.
He's got the spicy cough at the moment, so best wishes to Eric. Unfortunately, out of action, but yeah, hope he's doing okay.
Okay. Let's move on to the US and the NWSL. They're not doing a little break at the moment. They're playing on through, which is interesting given that the US, I suppose that's what we've done in the dub prior as well. But this time around, they're kicking on, and we're going to pause next time for the FIFA windows in A-League Women's Season 15. Racing Louisville with Alex Giat playing a full game went down 1-2 against Gotham FC. Angel City had a 2-1 win over San Diego Wave with Emily Van Egmond also playing a full game. And Chelsea Dorber was not seen because she's at the AFF Championships, but Chicago Red Stars had a 2-2 draw against North Carolina Courage. That's a league that's very easy to watch. If people are out there and wondering, wow, how do I get access to some of these bits and pieces? The NWSL has traditionally been one of the leagues that's made it easy. I don't think Twitch is as easy as when it was on YouTube directly, but it's easy enough.
Got to get that. Yeah, get that Amazon money from Twitch, and you can cast that to your TV if that's your thing as well.
Yep. Very true. All right, let's rock on to state football, but we'll go through it quickly if people are happy with that. No games in the ACT due to the Kanga Cup, and hence that's, I suppose, maybe why Stefan's having a wee break as well. Dale, do you want to take us through New South Wales?
Yeah, for sure. So one game was postponed, Sydney Olympic versus Bankstown City, due to, I think it was because of international representation. Don't know who from Bankstown was playing for the Matildas, but anyway, Manly United 1, Blacktown Spartans 1 at Cromer Park. Emily Manette and Ashley Crofts with the goals there. Sydney Uni with a 1-0 win away to Football New South Wales Institute. Huge game from Western Sydney Wanderers goalkeeper Courtney Newbon in that one. Saved a shot off the line in the last minutes of injury time. Super impressed with her. MacArthur Rams 4. Beat the Emerging Jets 0. Goals to Holly Williams, Laura Murtagh, Beth Gordon and Kylie Ledbrook, a name we will all be familiar with, and goals to Claire Adams and Zoe Daly for the young Novocastrians. Northern Tigers went down 3-0 in the North Sydney Derby against Northwest Sydney Spirit, formerly known as the Koalas. Erin Tavares and Sophie Harding with the goals there. And Illawarra Stingrays, they finally got a game. I believe this game was actually played at Illingdon Oval or Illingdon Sports Centre in Rockdale. They had a 1-1 draw against RPA Leichhardt. Michelle Carney, another former A-League women's veteran, with a goal for Illawarra, and RPA with a last-minute goal from Rihanna Pollicina of Melbourne City fame. Plenty of games, and you can all find them on NPL.tv.
Thank you very much. I'm going to test your memory and see who scored the first, not the first goal at all, but Michelle Carney versus Kylie Ledbrook, who scored a goal earlier in what is now known as NPLW, but in your state league competition, because they've both been around for a while.
I love how it's like I can pull this out of the back of my brain.
Yeah, I'd say both of them would have scored in the WNSL. I'm almost certain that Kylie Ledbrook played for New South Wales I think they were called the Sapphires back then. And so would have Michelle Carney. And that's like how long they've been around. So since 2005, I am almost certain that they played in the last season of the WNSL.
I'm expecting him to pull out. Yeah, in 2004, Michelle Carney scored in round 4 against Bloody.
Interestingly, they're actually both from, I'm fairly sure they're Michelle Carney's from Camden and Kylie Ledbrook lives in Campbelltown. From memory, she works at the Maccas there. So, but yeah, they have been around since I was knee-high to a grasshopper, but I will come back to you with more information on that one. Consider that.
Thank you. Madge, talk to us about Queensland football, please.
Yeah, we had the 3 NPLW games here. Gold Coast United took down Capalaba FC with goals to 2-1, goals to Momo Hayashi and Bronte Rose, and Jasmine Genovosi scored the goal for Capalaba. Olympic FC took on Sunshine Coast Wanderers and won 2-0 with goals to Matalena Daniels and Tonya Marie Rantucci. I got out to the game for Lions versus South United, and Lions took that one away 5-0. Now I'm not quite sure who took down the goal scorers, because one of them is wrong. Definitely Tegan Riding grabbed the first goal of that game. Tia Apo scored 2. Marieleka grabbed a goal. Actually, the first one for Tia Apo was beautiful, and I didn't catch who the midfielder was that put through a beautiful through ball from halfway that absolutely split the defence, and it was a wonderful goal. And even Marielle's goal was really lovely. She put the ball out to the wing and got it back immediately and tapped it in. Just a really nice move. But also a quick shout out to South's goalkeeper, Bianca Warrener. I think she, even though had 5 goals scored against her, she pulled out some ripping saves as well, even though they were a little bit outmatched in the game.
Thank you. Molly, I don't have much notice to give you, but anything in the Tasmanian Women's Super League that you want to call out, or you can take away with the Vic results if you want.
So in Tassie, I can just remember the scores off the top of my head. You've got Devonport had the bye. Launceston United continued winning. I think it was 7-0 against Canberra. They ended up relocating that game to an all-surface place because Canberra always gets flooded. And then South Hobart got held up against Clarence, which means that I reckon Lonnie United on a good stretch to get their first state league title since they've come into the competition, which is really exciting. There's still obviously a bit of season to go, but that's looking good for London United.
Okay, very nice. Thank you. In Victoria, we're up to the semi-finals of the Nike FC Cup. Heidelberg United went down 2-3 against South Melbourne. Good to see South Melbourne, or not good to see, but different to see them coming back when their NPLW season hasn't been quite so strong. Keely Lockhart scored a brace for Heidelberg United, while for South Melbourne, Yana Lawson, Grace Taranto and Georgia Candelas all scored a goal. The second of the semi-finals is played tomorrow between Bulleen Lions and Calder United. We've also had NPLW round 15 of 21, so there's not too much football left to go for that, and that's usually my benchmark for when the dub starts. The first match, Box Hill United against Calder United, was postponed. Alamein had a 4-1 victory over FV Emerging. Heidelberg United played again and they had a 2-0 win over Bayside United, and then South Melbourne had a 3-0 victory over the Bulleen Lions as well. So maybe they're making a bit of a stretch for their season at the moment. They're either 6th or 7th on the table. They might be coming back a little bit now, so we'll see how that goes. Queens of the week. Dale, do you want to give us a queen or a king or a non-binary or a joker?
I will give a queen to Grusky Oro. 50th cap for France this morning. Scored in her 50th cap. Somehow didn't go to the last World Cup.
Got a hat trick.
She got a hattie today in her big day, which is really good to see. Somehow didn't go to the last World Cup. She's been smashing it for PSG recently. And yeah, just really happy to see that she's doing so well. She's a really interesting player. I think that a lot of people don't really recognise how important she is to the French team. But obviously popping up with 3 goals against Italy, I think any French player would be pretty happy with that.
Very nice. Molly?
I think mine has to go to Magda Eriksson just for her amazing challenge. 15 minutes to go, Raud already on a goal. She stops Raud, and it's a thing of beauty, and it's something that I just have on replay in my head since I've seen it. So yeah, definitely Magda Eriksson, and she made a few other things happen as well, but she's always a good one to pick.
I think Molly talked off air just about how it's maybe a little bit tricky to grab some snapshots of those bits and pieces. But if you're watching the full highlights or the full game, at what time do you think that happened, Molly? So people can have a wee look, because it wasn't in the highlights reel.
It's the 76th minute, and I'm pretty sure a few minutes later there's a really good replay of it. So in about the 75th minute, you should see all the goods leading up to it, and yeah.
Very good.
I think that was a good. We need to give Molly a shout out for her little, her great content that she's doing on Instagram only, or is it going to Twitter?
It's on Instagram and TikTok at the moment. I can't figure out the other ones yet.
Yeah, she's doing some fabulous breakdowns of moments like that. So you can also jump onto Molly's Instagram and TikTok and check that out. Fantastic. My queens, kings, everyone of the week are all of the fans. I think it's Cheryl, you touched on it. Being with Matildas Active Support, seeing the Netherlands and the Swedish fans just absolutely rocking the place in the Euros is exactly what we want to see in Australia and New Zealand next year. And just I think Australians, we can be a little bit reserved sometimes, but just look at the atmosphere, just let loose. Let's just have an absolute party next year. We'll be setting up pubs and pre-game and hopefully doing marches to the games like they've been doing in the Euros. So I reckon everyone just work on putting your inhibitions to the side and just let's get ready for a party next year.
Yeah, really top point, because we don't want to be one of the dual hosting nations and have people who sort of turn up quietly to the game.
We don't want to be the Dow Norwegians. We want to be
knowing Australian sports crowds. I can only hope that things improve from what our usual events here are like. But yeah, we'll be super looking forward to seeing.
Only thing I will say is that there have been a lot of waves at the Euros. So it's not just Australians being a bit naff. They do it in Europe too. They're not
anyone that does a wave at a football game should be ejected. Hot take, get them out of here.
Very, very harsh, but yeah, great point, and love to see more people being as active as they can be. Practice at the NPLW matches, practice at the dub as that comes along as well. A couple more Queens of the
games coming up as well.
Oh, yes. A couple of Queens of the Week. So, Eric, your Queen of the Week is Serena Bolden, who scored a hat-trick as the Philippines defeated Indonesia 4-1 at the AFF Championship. So congratulations to Serena. And my Queen of the Week, I thought I might pick out a couple of other ones, but I think this one is a pretty good one to go with. Megan Rapinoe for receiving the Presidential Medal of Freedom, which is more than football. It's more than soccer, as they would call it in the US. It's really about using her platform to make an incredible difference and having a strong voice. Not everyone may agree with that voice, but she's saying strong political things and hopefully making the game a better game and a better place for women and everyone to play football in. Any final thoughts from anyone? I hope everyone's had a little bit of sleep time. And if you don't, you can have it in a couple of weeks anyway.
Going to go and watch the Tour de France and then go and make another coffee at about 5 o'clock tomorrow morning, and just continue trudging through July.
We'll try and get some sleep stats from the team at Beyond 90 and around and see how everyone's faring. But we wish you all the very best. Thank you to our listeners as well. You're probably just as sleep deprived as what we are, but isn't it a fantastic time in July to watch so much women's football? I do note that there is an ad that goes around the billboard signs or the backboard signs, whatever they're called, which says, women play football, it's not women's football. I don't know. I thought that was a bit naff myself. To some degree, I don't mind calling it women's football because it differentiates that it's the game that I love. But I like that they're calling out that it's still the same game and just get behind it. So thank you, everyone. We'll talk to you again next week.